Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good evening and welcome. As you know, it's just after 8:30 here in the United Kingdom, and we're coming to you live from the studios of British Muslim TV here in Wakefield, West Yorkshire, with this week's edition of Questions with me, Mohammed Shafiq. We're broadcasting Sky Channel 752 and across social media at the handle British Muslim TV. Now, wherever you are joining us from around the world, a very warm welcome. We want you to comment on the big stories we're covering tonight. You can call us now on 01924 231 083 or messages on the WhatsApp number, which is on your screen now. Now, if you're watching this on Facebook, post your comments in the chat box and we'll read some of them on air later. Tonight, we devote the whole programme to the uproar of the film The Lady of Heaven, with a dialogue between senior Sunni scholar Shaykh Muhammad Umar, the chairman of the Ramadan Foundation, and the senior Shia scholar Shaykh Arif Abdul Hussain of the Mahdi Institute on the issues facing the diverse British Muslim community. So if you want to hear your thoughts on that topic tonight, you can call us on 01924 231 083 or messages on British Muslim TV across social media. Alternatively, you can send us a WhatsApp message. The number is on your screen. The questions we're considering tonight: how important is it that we stop any sectarian division we see on the streets of the United Kingdom? Does the film The Lady of Heaven cause offence towards Sunni communities? And how can we collectively defeat attempts to divide our communities? Please share your thoughts on 01924 231 083, messages on WhatsApp or post on social media, and we'll read some of the comments throughout the programme. Let us get started on the programme. Sheikh Yasser Habib is a Kuwaiti Shia scholar who lives and resides in the UK. He's been accused of cementing division and hatred amongst Muslims and was jailed for such offences in Kuwait. He claimed political asylum here in the UK and has established a mosque and a TV channel. His views have been condemned and opposed by the majority of Shia scholars and also by many Sunni Muslim scholars, according to an entry on Wikipedia. He's peddled in hate speech towards the leaders of Muslims, Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu and Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. He caused huge offence when he celebrated the death of the mother of believers, Sayyida Aisha Siddiqa salamun alayha, and he was expelled from Kuwait as a result. It is a known fatwa edict from the Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei that the insult of the Sunni dignitaries, Hazrat Aisha, Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq, Hazrat Umar ibn al-Khattab, is haram for Shias to engage in. The Grand Ayatollah of Iraq, one of the most authoritative voices of Shia Islam, Ayatollah Sistani, also made it haram. Yet Yasser Habib chose to describe Ayatollah Khamenei, so-called Ali al-Khamenei, who pretends to be a Shia scholar, according to the alqatra.net website. Now, The Lady of Heaven is a 2021 British epic historic drama film written by the said Yasser Habib. It was released across cinemas in the UK on June the 3rd, 2022. Habib claims the film is the first movie on the life of the historic figure, the mother of believers, Sayyida Fatima Zahra salamun alayha. He made offensive comparisons to ISIS and the Caliphs Abu Bakr Siddiq and Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Now, members of the British Sunni community decided to protest outside cinemas in the UK that were showing the film, leading to a number of them cancelling the showing based on staff welfare and safety reasons. Thousands of protests which led to offensive. Thousands of those protested, but a minority of them also led to the offensive and sectarian slogans of Shia Kafir, Shia Kafir. Sign World said it took the decision to cancel all showing of The Lady of Heaven to ensure the safety of our staff and customers. The film's producer defended the right of protesters to express their displeasure, but said it was silly and against British values for the film to be pulled completely. Now, over 120,000 people have signed a petition calling for the film to be banned. Malik Shilbak is the executive producer of the film. He told the Guardian newspaper this week that cinemas should stand up and defend their right to show films that people want to see. And he said, I quote to the Guardian, "I think cinemas are crumbling to the pressure and taking these decisions to quell the noise." He added that the production company had received dozens of messages from people who were trying to book tickets to see the film, but are now not able to do that. He said, and I quote, "This is an artistic endeavour talking about and elaborating on history and religion, which is always a plethora of different takes and interpretations. That's normal and healthy. We welcome this, and we welcome people to express themselves, whether they're for or against the film. What we don't support, this is Malik speaking, not me, what we don't support and what we vehemently stand against is what they're trying to do. He's referring to the protesters here, which is to censor others and dictate what we can and cannot watch in the UK cinemas. He goes on. This is the executive producer of the film. He says they have no right to do so, and it's something very dangerous. The general population really need to be aware of this and stand up to this, because it's infringing and putting in danger their freedom of speech. Now, Shaykh Mohammed Umar is the chairman of the Ramadan Foundation here in the UK, and he's been working for decades to bring communities together. Last week, he held and led a press conference of Sunni and Shia scholars to not only condemn the film, but also condemn the sectarian slogans seen in some of the protests by a minority of people. Sheikh Arif Abdul Hussain is a senior Shia scholar and founder of the Mahdi Institute in Birmingham. For over 20 years, Sheikh Arif has been at the forefront of developing and delivering advanced Islamic studies and bringing British Muslims together, whatever their background. I'm pleased to say that both honourable scholars are joining me tonight live from Manchester in terms of Sheikh Umar, and Sheikh Arif is joining us from Birmingham. Your Excellencies, a very warm welcome to the programme. Such an honour that we can have this conversation here on British Muslim TV. Thank you so much for joining us. As ever, we're going to open the lines after the break on 01924231083. If you've got a question for the scholars, please raise. Sheikh Mohammed, let's start with you. Tell us what you know about Yasser Habib.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you for arranging this program. I think it's much needed that we sit and we discuss and have a dialogue regarding this latest controversial movie or film called The Lady of Heaven. Yasser al-Habib is a Kuwaiti, or was a Kuwaiti citizen. His citizenship was taken away from him by the Kuwaiti government because, as people are aware of, and anyone that studies geopolitics in the MENA region will realize that Kuwait is one of the most free and tolerant countries in the entire Arab world. And one of the things that Kuwait prides itself upon is this tolerance between Sunnis and Shias. You don't have this extremism there. So he was a person that was inciting violence, should we say, indirectly, not directly, but indirectly, as a consequence of what he was saying. The rhetoric, what you described in your introduction was exactly what he was shouting and displaying and distributing throughout Kuwait. And that, number one, causes a major problem because Kuwait is a majority Sunni country, which neighbors Iraq, a majority Shia country.
Okay.
It can, ignite sectarian violence. So this is his background. He's a younger man.
He is very young, isn't he? We've got, just for our viewers' sake, we've got the whole programme dedicated to this, and we're really honoured that both of the scholars are staying with us for the full programme. As I said, we'll open the lines very, very shortly. But Sheikh Arif, to you, what impact does the allegations of sectarian division directed towards Yasser Habib have on people here in the UK?
I'm not sure if I understand the question accurately, but I do know that the majority of the Shia are not as aware as our Sunni brothers assume them to be. They're not aware of sectarianism in the way that we are talking about it today. Maybe now they've become aware that there are huge tensions between Sunnis and Shias. And whatever Yasser Habib's narrative is, majority of the Shias are not aware of it, only sometimes when they see clips being forwarded of his statements or of his video clips, that they are either appalled, greatly appalled, or they are just baffled, and they're very innocent in that way. So majority of the people, I don't think they know any better. Of course, there are some people who are extremely concerned seeing what Yasser al-Habib or anybody else for that matter is saying about the revered figures of the Sunnis and its impact upon the Shias, whether they are in the UK or abroad. So, for example, we have a few mosques around the Shia mosques within UK where the Shias used to send food after the programs of commemoration of Imam Hussain, whereas previously they would accept that food. In recent days, they refuse it and they send it back. Similarly, they are finding now that their neighbors who used to sit with them and eat with them now sit with them but refuse to eat with them or look at them with some caution and suspicion. So it is having an impact, and the Shia masses actually are not aware as to why this is happening and what is causing it. Some who are aware are appalled, whereas I'm sure there is a group that is aware and also condones such rhetoric because they actually believe that what Yasser Habib is saying is the truth and it needs to be said and people need to be made aware of.
Okay, thank you, Shaykh. We really want to take this conversation and we're going to open the lines and give you an opportunity of our viewers to also share your thoughts and questions around this. But that real important point, we've got about 60 seconds before our break, so I'll take this question to you, Shaykh Mohammed Umar, just after the break. But the one about the sectarianism that we've seen at some of these protests, the slogans, the takfirism, if you like to call it that we see on the streets of the United Kingdom, and the impact that will have on communities. It will make members of the Shia community feel very vulnerable, and we've got a responsibility, mainstream Sunni responsibility, to not only condemn that film, if you choose to do that, but also condemn the slogans and sectarianism that we see on our streets. That's not the way of Rasulullah. It's not the way of Rasulullah and his blessed Sahaba and the blessed Ahlul Bayt. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue this special conversation about the film, The Lady of Heaven. Join us on the other side of these important messages. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Questions with me, Mohammed Shafiq. My honourable guests are Shaykh Mohammed Umar, the chairman of the Ramadan Foundation, and Shaykh Arif Abdul Hussain, who's the founder and inspiration behind the Al-Mahdi Institute. If you're anywhere in the Midlands, I really recommend you go and visit that, because I had the honour last year to visit there, last October at their annual conference, and it was an extraordinary coming together of people of many different backgrounds, and the diversity of the community. So I do encourage you to go and have a look. Shaykh Mohammed Umar, we saw the sectarianism that we often see that divides communities. We see it in Afghanistan, we see it in Pakistan, we see it in the Middle East, where ISIS were deliberately targeting members of the Shia community. And now we're seeing it on the streets of the United Kingdom, where people are labelling Shia Muslims as kafir. Where does this sectarianism come from?
It's a very interesting question you've asked, and it's a very deep question, should we say, and that needs a lot of research. A lot of research has been done on this, but let's put it in a nutshell for our viewers. What you call or what you refer to as takfiri ideology. Takfir basically means claiming or making an announcement that such a person is out of the fold of Islam, which we also refer to as excommunicating an individual. That ideology, that way of thinking, that way of believing originates itself or comes into origin, which we find in Islamic history during the time of Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam. So when the fourth Khalifa radiallahu anhu alayhi salam, when he was the leader, and when he had an arbitration with Muawiyah, the ruler of Syria, which was one of the early or first, or I would call it the first major civil war in the Muslim history. A group emerged who were initially the followers of Imam Ali, and they objected to this arbitration between two parties, and they were the ones that went around and proclaimed that Ali radiallahu anhu was a kafir, a'udhu billah, and Muawiyah was a kafir also, a'udhu billah. So that takfiri ideology originates from that. From that ideology comes out from the killing of people. So for example, we have an incident where Khabbab bin Arrat radiallahu anhu is a very famous companion of the Prophet and Imam Ali. He had a son called Abdullah who met the Khawarij outside his house. The Khawarij attacked him, they killed, they beheaded him, and they murdered his wife, one said slave, who was heavily pregnant. So that's narrow-minded, extreme takfiri ideology who ISIS adhere to and who ISIS follow, that originates and that comes from the Khawarij. Now, neither Shia or Sunnis adhere to that. That is a minority, a very small minority from Sunni Islam that has been rejected by all the scholars, even the Wahhabi scholars, Shaykh Uthaymeen, Shaykh Salih Fawzan, Shaykh Rabi al-Madkhali, to an extent, Shaykh bin Baz, the former late Grand Mufti, Shaykh Muhammad Nasiruddin Albani, all of these eminent scholars of the Wahhabi school have condemned this ideology. So it's a minority. And what's interesting was how this gentleman who you referred to as the film producer, what he was attempting to do, which was very I would call it intellectual dishonesty. He was trying to attempt to portray modern Sunnis today, the majority of Sunnis, with this takfir ideology, which is factually incorrect and has no basis at all in itself. That's a nutshell of what it is.
Thank you so much. And we're going to explore the actual film and the history behind that in a second. Shaykh Arif, how amongst the Shia scholars and the Shia community, how is Yasir Habib seen?
So the Shia scholars, from the statements that I have read from them, are very cautious of him and skeptical of him and his intentions. And obviously, we know that the Shia scholars are peace-loving people. They do not want to incite anyone. Leave aside the Sunnis, they do not wish to incite the non-Muslims either. And they might believe in things, but they also believe that these things should not be said in a way that are offensive. So the Shia scholars do not have a very high opinion of what scholars such as Yasir al-Habib are doing, in the sense of coming out into the open and deriding the Khulafa and the wives of the Prophet. And of course, the Shia scholars themselves may not agree with many of the things that Yasir al-Habib is saying through historical text, by saying that these, I'm talking about the studied and learned Shia scholars, by saying that these texts cannot be verified and they are not valid. The Shia scholars, by and large, uphold the importance of the unity of the Muslim Ummah. Now, if you look at the recent history, Marhum Khomeini had a famous statement that the one who says Shia or Sunni and seeks to make a distinction between the two sects is neither a Shia or a Sunni. And now the grand authority, Ali Hussain Sistani, that is followed by, I assume, over 90% of the Shias, he stated that do not say that Sunnis are our brothers, rather say they are our souls. And during the aftermath of the collapse of Saddam and the sectarian strife and tensions within Iraq, and we saw that the Sunnis and Shias, extreme groups amongst them, were attacking each other, Sayyid Khamenei's view there was that even if you get attacked by an extremist Sunni, do not respond in a like manner. We do not want any tension within the Muslim Ummah. And of course, Iraq for 1,000 years has Sunni Shias living together. Of course, there have been times of tension, but by and large, they've been intermarrying, living as one family. Even in Birmingham, if you look at the Shia community, the Punjabi Shia community, you will find that many of them their family members are Shia and Sunni together, and they have coexisted like this for a long time. So the Shias see that Muslim unity also entails familial unity. So there is no question of saying things to divide them. And when they find these sort of people coming to the fore and saying things that are divisive, they are quite afraid as to what this will result in.
Yeah, I know. And I was just saying that over the last few weeks, conversations with members of the Shia community, I hear that again and again, and particularly after we saw those slogans at that protest. We should also make it clear the vast majority of the protesters were peaceful and didn't engage in those slogans. There was a very small minority. A couple of you are asking that on social media, so I'm more than happy to set that record straight. It was certainly a... Shaykh Umar, what do you make of the film and the uproar that we've seen in the country?
I think it's a waste of $15 million.
Yeah, I was shocked when I found out it was £15 million. I thought, wow.
Which was shocking. I mean, from a neutral perspective, the quality wasn't very good. So it wasn't the standards of what we would call of Hollywood or the standards of what modern Muslims now watch Etruscan or Usman Bey regarding the Ottoman Empire. It was very poorly written. Which and very poorly researched. One of the things that I found quite appalling was, obviously I mentioned about Takfiri ideology. So the movie starts off with an opening scene of a woman based in Mosul who apparently belongs to the Shia denomination. Now, anyone that studies and anyone that's been to Iraq, and I've been on multiple occasions, not only have I visited Iraq, I've actually been to the front lines where I've witnessed the horrors of ISIS and the atrocities, and I've been to Mosul and different places, Balad, Dhulu'iyya, Salahadin, and so forth. One of the things that becomes very clear is that there's no Shia in Mosul at all. Mosul is a predominant Sunni area. The Shias predominantly live in their own regions. Initially, and this was something that Ayatollah Murtada Qazwini said to me once, he's one of the most senior clerics in Karbala. He said during his period when he was a young man, as soon as the Shias did have regions where they lived with each other, but because of the sectarian violence after 2004 and onwards, and with certain prime ministers that I don't want to mention of Iraq that ignited sectarian violence, the Shias, withdrew. And they moved to regions which were predominantly Shia areas. So that was a factual incorrect. That was a very major mistake. And secondly, then what they did was they tried to make an analogy of Sayyidah Fatima, Salamun alayha. She's actually not from Iraq. She's from Medina, Makkah al-Mukarramah, thousands of miles in Saudi Arabia. There's no connection at all between these two countries apart from the geography and the language we have nowadays. So that portrayal was very, very insincere, using black people or black actors to mimic a certain minority narrative. So there is a narrative within certain historical accounts that Yasser Habib follows that portrays Umar and Shaykhain Abu Bakr and Umar radiallahu anhu has been black, but they're extremely weak. And what would have done justice was fine if this was the narrative that Habib, if this is his narrative and this is what he believes in, I would have liked him to show an alternative narrative that would have shown his sincerity, should we say, to an extent that there was a debate there. But by purposely, he wanted to portray a minority view, which even that narrative, even though it may be the popular. It's what we call what I call the loudest voice. It's not the majority view, it's the loudest voice. But even that within classical Shia scholars, and I don't want to speak over Shaykh Arif, he's a specialist in Shia Islam, but I've done research on this because I have presented a paper. The most senior scholars of Shia, classical and modern, contemporary, have casted doubt on the reliability of the the documentary evidences or literature that Yasser Habib has used. So I found it very poorly written, and hence, there was a lot of mistakes in there. I mean, look, for example,
we're just reaching our next break. Time is flying here tonight, so we'll come back and hear Sheikh Arif's response to the same question, which is what his reaction is to the film as well. Lots of questions on social media around the slogans and the impact, and that the cinemas didn't ban the film. They're just worried about the safety of their staff. Join us shortly. Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Questions with me, Mohammed Shafiq. We're talking about the film, which is causing lots of controversy, not just here in the UK, but around the world. We've seen governments around the world ban the film and any attempt to promote it. Morocco, Pakistan, amongst many other countries in the Middle East as well. Now, just before the break, the Honourable Sheikh Mohammed Umar, Chairman of Ramadan Foundation, was telling us about his reaction to the film and the uproar. Sheikh Arif, who's joining us from Birmingham, the founder of the Mahdi Institute. I suppose same question to you, sir. What's your reaction to the film and the subsequent uproar that we've seen these past few weeks?
I was actually appalled by looking at the film portraying the Khulafa, especially Khalifa Abu Bakr and Khalifa Umar, as villains who always had ill intentions towards the Prophet and were always conspiring against the Prophet. Obviously, this is inaccurate, and we know this is inaccurate from the reading of our history and from the verses of the Quran that generally sees the Sahaba in good light. Of course, the Quran does point out the flaws of the Sahaba, the defects of the Sahaba. At the same time, it applauds the Sahaba, their sacrifice, and whatever they've done for the sake of Islam. And we know Khalifa Abu Bakr has spent so much on Islam. He is the one who was with the Prophet in the cave. Conveniently, the movie does not show that. Now, for me, that was extremely appalling that there is dishonesty here, lack of integrity. They were not evil people that were always conspiring against the Blessed Prophet. They may never have conspired against the Blessed Prophet. Yes, I'm saying, and to the best of my knowledge, they haven't conspired against the Blessed Prophet. So I'm saying from the Shia perspective, although within the Shia texts, there is negativity associated with Khalifa Abu Bakr and Khalifa Umar, but that is after the death of the Prophet in their disagreement with Lady Fatima, but not in the lifetime of the Prophet. Yet this movie shows that they were always conspiring against the Prophet and they had ill intentions towards the Prophet. Now, to depict them in that way is very, very appalling. To what Sheikh Umar said is that I was obviously afraid that this narrative pushed by the movie will suggest to the Sunnis that this is the popular narrative of the Shia and has been so from the very early days. And it will re-emphasize within the hearts and minds of the Shia that this is the popular narrative of the Shia. Whereas I said previously, Shias are naive. Even their scholars are naive in the sense that, the scholars normally study jurisprudence and legal theory at the institution, at the seminaries. And beyond that, they learn philosophy and discursive theology. But history is something that they read. They do not specialize in history, nor in the art of biographical studies or rijal. So the scholars are none the wiser when it comes to history and trying to establish the historicity of the events. So masses and the scholars will get this impression that this is the ordained version of Shia understanding of history. And that is extremely worrying because the Shia scholars who have studied will not accept that the Prophet's wives poisoned the Prophet. And when it comes to the attack on the Lady Fatima, the earliest source that narrates this incident, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Hussain Sistani, says that that book has been interpolated, and therefore you can't trust that book as a source. What that means is that if there's been additions to that book, then you don't know which section of it has been added to. So as a result, you can't trust much of the book, especially sensitive areas of the book where we have contrary narratives. And therefore, Shias also have differing narratives. However, the way this film is made is giving one narrative, and the way the reason I was afraid is that because that narrative is also found within Sunni books, and it has never been told to the naive Shias or the Sunnis that it's in both books, but it is something that has been discredited by many of the grand scholars. So, for example, Ali Hussain Sistani doesn't believe in the first source, Sayyid al-Khuwi, his teacher, did not believe in it. The great Sheikh Mufid of the Shia did not believe in it. The Grand Hilli did not believe in it. So it was offensive to see Khulafa portrayed in that way. It was offensive to see the mothers of the believers, the wives of the Prophet who are called the mothers of the believers by the Quran, portrayed in the way that they were portrayed. And then what was worrying was that the Sunnis will feel that all the Shias believe in this, and the Shias will feel this is what we believe in, and nothing could be further away from the truth.
Yeah.
In the sense that there are many versions of what happened, and a lot of these things have been discredited earlier on.
Yeah.
And well, let me just finish.
Sure, please.
That when these things are portrayed via the media, then they become popular mainstream understanding of history, whereas they were never mainstream understanding. But when they are portrayed in this way, then they subsequently become mainstream.
And the people that don't have the knowledge then would assume that that's the correct version of the history that we're talking about.
Having said that, there are many Shias at the grassroots level that I know who say, well, this is all very, very unbelievable. And there are many, many of them.
Yeah, so true. We are going, as I said, we will open lines. I just want to get the initial responses. We're here till 10 o'clock tonight, so there'll be lots of time for you to get involved. Sheikh Mohammed Umar is joining us from the Ramadan Foundation. What is it? I'm sorry, I'm just going to tell our viewers as well, inshallah, after the break, the next break, we'll talk about that history. So we'll talk about the relationship between the Sahaba and the Blessed Ahlul Bayt and what their relationship was like. You know, what does history say from a Shia perspective, but also from a Sunni perspective? So it gives you a clear image as to what Sheikh Arif was directing you towards. Sheikh Umar, what is it in the film that has caused so much offence? Because, you know, from a purely marketing point of view, if we had just all ignored it, as some claim, he wouldn't. The film wouldn't have got the publicity it got. But by people protesting, the mainstream media taking an interest, politicians taking an interest, it seems to have helped them promote their film.
So that view that you've said has some validity in it, because the movie did flop in the US, and the vast majority of American Muslim organizations did not dignify it with a response. And that's right, that's their right to do that. But Muslims, everyone has their own way, the means of approaching things. The Muslim community is very different. The American Muslim community is extremely different to how we are here in the UK. And because of our history of sectarian issues in the past, and because of the geographical locations that we come from, Pakistan and India, and we've seen the recent violence between sectarianism, there was a need for scholars to come out from both sides to condemn it. Not only condemning it based on the basis of unity, but based upon research that this is one narrative of incidents that took place in early Islam. There are many other narratives, there are many other issues or angles or facets of that, and we should approach history in a holistic manner, in being able to understand it and contextualize it in the right manner. We don't approach these issues for an agenda, and it reminds me of, for example, in Iraq, there was a demonstration outside the grave of Abu Hanifa al-Azamiya area. This is a renowned Sunni area. Abu Hanifa is one of the great Sunni Imams. And some of the youngsters, Shabab, of the Shia world, of the Shias in Iraq, were cursing Umar bin al-Khattab radiallahu anhu in that area. Again, following the traits of Yasir Habib. And immediately, Sayyid Sistani released a fatwa immediately. This is very rare of him. He doesn't do this, but he came out extremely bluntly, and he announced and said that this type of action is un-Islamic, it's not from our ethics, and anyone that abuses such figures should be condemned. So anyway, we are seeing that, but I think there's one of the things that's positive about this is how Muslims have come out unified. Yeah. Not just within Sunni, but Sunni and Shias have come together. We've got our youths now going onto Google, going onto social media, and trying to find out more factual information. So from Sunni, and I'll conclude with this point: as Sunnis, what we can't do is bury everything underneath the carpet and say nothing actually happened, and that it was everyone got on with each other at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and even after his honorable death sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We have to be able to look at these contentious issues and provide legitimate and adequate answers to them, so that our youth can understand what happened then and how to contextualize it in a modern way. The problem is what we do is we either deny it and say, no, these things never happened, or we just brush it underneath the carpet. And what that does, it fuels that ambiguity even more.
Okay, so I just wanted to ask you a similar question to you, Shaykh Arif. You spent your life, we've got about 90 seconds before the break, so if you could be brief, sir. You've spent your life bringing communities together, bringing Muslims together. How damaging has this film been to your cause?
Maybe we can continue after the break as well, this question.
Sure, yeah.
Obviously, I think there's a silver lining that the Shia and the Sunni, for the first time, maybe have begun to realize that history has to be one history. You can't have two sets of Muslims with two diametrically opposed versions of history. So these things need to be discussed. Scholars need to come together from both sides and put it right by saying, okay, this is verifiable history. This history, is verified history, and this history is suspicious, and therefore we can park it to one side and not talk about it, save in academic circles when we speculate things. So yes, tell me when the time is done, so then I'll continue after the break.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, just stay there. I promise we'll come straight back to you, Shaykh Arif. You are watching a question special here tonight. We're talking about the film, which has been causing a lot of controversy, not just here in the UK, but around the world. The film is titled The Lady of Heaven. Sheikh Mohammed Umar from the Ramadan Foundation is here, and Sheikh Arif from the Al-Mahdi Institute. We'll take a very quick break. I promise you it's quick. We'll open the lines after the break as well and take your question. Join us on the other side of this. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to this special questions with me, Mohammed Shafiq, live here on British Muslim TV. We're talking about the film The Lady of Heaven and the controversy, the division, the sectarianism, the insult, the hurt feelings of everybody. Shaykh Arif, you were just talking before the break around this. Can you just elaborate what we were saying just before the break?
So obviously, being somebody who brings Muslims together and to sit them together for them to healthily discuss their differences. Initially, when I watched the movie, I did understand that there's going to be a huge uproar at the level of the grassroots, and that might even escalate and endanger people's safety. And I was fearful of that. But I had full confidence that the scholars that I associate with on the Shia and the Sunni side, that they will take a very, very mature approach, and they'll have a very mature attitude towards this. One of how do we come together? How do we calm the situation? And beyond that, what do we need to do to rectify the situation and to make sure it doesn't escalate again? Now, if you remember a couple of years ago, we had the uproar against the Shia in Pakistan because someone was aired on national television or another television channel reciting one of the ziyarat in which he was then cursing some of the Sahaba. And that then caused so much tension. So we could see from there that these things are inflammatory and they will cause tension, and quite rightly. If somebody is going to curse the Sahaba and the Khulafa and the wives of the Prophet, then it is supposed to cause that uproar and that pleasure from the crowds. But here I saw this as a unique opportunity, because what it does is it gives the Shia and the Sunni ulama time to think into their preaching, what they are saying to their audiences, how the audience's minds are being shaped. Had the teaching of Takfirism not taken place in the mosque, the people would not have chanted Shia Kafir. Had anti-Sahaba and anti-Ummahatul Mu'minin sentiment not been given by the pulpit, by the Shia speakers and orators, the Shia would not have been inclined to side with the movie and the narrative of the movie. So in that way, I think I saw a silver lining here and said that no, this is a great opportunity. Amidst the crisis comes a phenomenal opportunity for now the public orators and the scholars who are not historians to look inwards and to say, we need to now come together and get it right. Not only because of expediency, that now we are under threat of disunity and sectarian tension, but for the sake of Allah. Now, I concur with Shaykh Umar that in America, there was no noise made about the movie. If there is an educated, mature community, then we will find movies like this will come and pass by and won't affect anybody. But in the UK, the sentiment is a bit different. We are very much invested in our Islam, and UK has got a large number of Muslims and a very small country compared to America, and our attitudes are not as liberal as the Muslim attitude, Muslim American attitudes. So obviously here the sensitivities are much greater than there are in America. So the ideal situation would be that somebody who comes and abuses, everybody rejects them, doesn't even pay any heed, any attention, and lets it go. But here the situation is a bit different, and we need to bear that in mind, that it is not right in a country like this to provoke the Muslims who are already in a tense situation.
Yeah. Okay. So lots of questions coming through on Facebook and also Twitter, on all our various social media. Sarah Afzal says, too much conversation about the politics, Yasser, Bieber, and unity. The point being the content of the movie is more or less the version of events Shias accept. When will we be able to hear their version without turning into thugs and blocking them? Somebody called Yasser Al-Madasi. I'm sorry, it's in Arabic, so I can't really read it properly. He says he wants to debate with you, Arif Sab, and he's insulting you, so we'll leave that there. And Shahid Latif said it was the film of Satan. You know you're probably doing something right when you're being attacked from both sides, as certain people would say. Okay, Sheikh Umar, let's talk about that history. And then we'll hear it, as Sarah Afzal wants to hear it. So let's talk about that. One of the things that Al-Mahdi Institute do, SIMS, Center for Inter-Muslim Studies do, and I've seen it in my own, when I was there last year, you have that dialogue, you have that discussion. It's a scholarly level, but it's also done with the utmost adab and respect, and I've seen that with my own eyes. So let's see if we can do a bit of that, a bit of SIMS on camera, to all the viewers watching this around the world. We're broadcasting not just here in the United Kingdom and Europe, we're all across the Middle East and in North America as well, in Africa, wherever you are around the world, we welcome you, we thank you. Shaykh Umar, to you first. Tell us, what was the relationship like between Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq or Sayyidina Umar bin Khattab radiallahu ta'ala and the blessed Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam?
So, Shafiq, you've mentioned SIMS, the Center for Intra-Muslim Studies. So this is a center which brings scholars from across the board, from all different denominations and sects. And what we do, which other people don't do, is we don't talk about our commonalities. We talk about the most contentious issues in our history, and we have a dialogue. So I would really request, and I would really humbly say to Sarah and all other viewers for a more in-depth analysis on the door of Sayyidah Fatima and whether Umar bin al-Khattab radiallahu anhu attacked it, please go to the SIMS website or go to YouTube, and there's a full over 1.5 hours dialogue, which I myself had a presentation with a Shia scholar presenting why I believe that it did not exist. Now, the issue that you have to accept, Shafiq, is there are many things that are written in our history that may be written in some of the most senior books of Sunni Islam that doesn't substantiate that such an event took place. Let me give you one simple example. In Sahih Muslim, we have a hadith under the chapter of Manaqib, virtues, about Abu Sufyan, the leader of Mecca. And the narrations, very quickly, let me put it in a nutshell, is that when Islam had, when Rasulullah had taken over Mecca, Abu Sufyan comes to him and says to him, and this is an authentic narration, says to him, that may I offer to you the most beautifulest of all women in the entire land of Arabia, and he was referring to his daughter. Now, historically, we know that Habiba, radiallahu anha wa sallam alayha, became a Muslim in Abyssinia, over 10 years before this incident. So that's a typical example of something that took place, but it's not contextualized, and it gives a wrong idea of the historical account. It needs to be one historical account. If we go back to history, we will learn and we will realize that the Sahaba and Ahlul Bayt did have a very close relationship. Remember, they spoke one language, they came from one land, they had, their ancestry comes back to one origin, they knew each other. I mean, Anfusikum, as the Quran says, Muhammad is from amongst themselves. They had relationships in all facets of society. And like any society, there's always disagreements between any parties. During the life of the Prophet ﷺ, we saw issues that did take place. For example, the Qirtas incident of the final will of the Prophet ﷺ, and we have those issues surrounding that. But the overall generical view, should I say, I'm not going to try to paint or sugarcoat it that there was no issues. There were issues, but the relationship was very cordial. The relationship was very friendly, and to such an extent that when Umar bin al-Khattab leaves Medina and goes to Jerusalem to receive the keys of the city after the Jews had invited him, who was put in his place to be the leader of the Muslims in Medina? It was Ali ibn Abi Talib. So if Sayyidina Ali had this animosity, if Umar bin al-Khattab had murdered his wife, had abused his wife, a'udhu billah, under what circumstance would Ali radiallahu anhu cooperate with a murderer? Ali is a man of justice. And even at the time of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, there's a very famous incident, a hadith found in Tirmidhi, it is hadith of Sahih, that 6 days after the Prophet ﷺ passed away, Abu Bakr and Ali both come to the honorable resting place, and Ali says, "Taqaddamu ya Khalifatul Rasul," that go further, O Khalifa of the Prophet. And Abu Bakr says, "How can I go before you when I heard the Messenger of Allah say that Ali's position to me is like my relationship with Allah?" So they had that love, they had that affection, but they did have disagreement, Shafiq. Like normal society, when politics gets involved, when the Muslim world is expanding, there will be differences. But was that difference a malign difference? Was it an attitude
Sorry,
hostility.
just stay there, Sheikh Saab. We're going to take a very quick break. When we come back, we'll carry on the conversation. Assalamu alaikum. Sorry, I'm just watching those adverts with you and a restaurant, food. I'm feeling a bit peckish now. Yeah, but anyway, let's move on. We are going to open lines very, very shortly. But Sheikh Umar, you were just finishing your hadith, and then I want to hear from Sheikh Arif as well. Tell us what you want to say in conclusion. This was in regards to the love between Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq and Hazrat Ali.
So yeah, historically, to summarize and to conclude, the relationship was a good relationship. It was a healthy relationship. It was a relationship for the betterment of the Muslim Ummah. The immediate passing of the Prophet ﷺ arise issues of succession, the contentious issues and rise. There was a difference of opinion, and there were differences, legitimate differences from both parts and from both parties. But to portray that there was an agenda of, let's say, a scheming, like that, like what Sheikh Arif was mentioning earlier on, that throughout the life, the Prophet Abu Bakr and Umar were Shaykhain were conspiring against him. It's very, very, it's not genuine at all. It's intellectual dishonesty. Why isn't the images portrayed? Why isn't the research put forth about how the Prophet sought and heavily relied upon the advice and the guidance of Abu Bakr and Umar on many issues, on many incidents, and then during the Khilaf of Abu Bakr and the leadership of Umar bin al-Khattab, both of them heavily relied upon the guidance and the judgment of Ali radiallahu anhu. In fact, they would not rule if a ruling would have been given that was contravened to the ruling of Ali. Ali's ruling would be upheld and they would follow that opinion. So I'm not trying to sugarcoat it, that some people may do. There are legitimate differences, there are legitimate arguments, but the relationship is generally, I would say, a healthy relationship between the Sahaba generally. And finally, what I would say is I've done research on this, and this was one of the researches I did. One of the conclusions I made was the ultimate reason, in my opinion, why Ali radiallahu anhu could not become the leader after the immediate aftermath of the passing of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was simple, because it would have been a civil war. The Ummah was not ready at that time. They needed someone of stability, neutrality, and that was the leadership of Abu Bakr. I know people would disagree with me, but that is my analysis. But generally, and there's a lot of other issues. Again, I don't want to take too much time, but generally the relationship was a healthy relationship, but there were issues of differences between them.
Okay, thank you so much. I really wanted to give you that, and we are going to open the lines. Lots of you are waiting to call in, so we will open the lines after we hear from Sheikh Arif. Let me ask you a similar question from a Shia perspective. What was the relationship like between the Shaykhain, Abu Bakr Siddiq and Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu, the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, and Hazrat Ali and the blessed Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam?
So you see, we can't deny that, as Sheikh Umar said, that there were disagreements. And they are to be seen as a human community. But then there were certain major events as well, like the Battle of the Camel, like the issue of Fadak. But the issue of the door, an attack on the door of Lady Fatima, that is something that is unbelievable. Historical texts, we cannot verify it with certitude. What we can verify is that, yes, there was a threat, and then Bibi Fatima was very offended, and undeniably she was very offended. Now, Imam Ali married the widow of Hazrat Abu Bakr, and he raised Khalifa Abu Bakr's son, Muhammad, and daughter, to the extent that Muawiyah would say that Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr was the hand of Imam Ali. Similarly, we, as Sheikh Umar said, Imam Ali accepted the position that Khalifa Umar gave him. Similarly, Imam Ali gave Hazrat Umar the advice to not be at the forefront of the soldiers, lest he be killed and the morale of the army be lost. So we are seeing there was cordiality. Similarly, when we read in our fiqh books, we find that both Khalifa Abu Bakr and Khalifa Umar, after referring to the Ansar and the Muhajirun for their opinions on issues of Islamic Sharia, they would ask Imam Ali, Abul Hassan, what is your view? And whatever Imam Ali would say, they would say, well, accept what Abul Hassan is saying. On occasions when Khalifa Umar would take a decision, Imam Ali would intervene and say, or interrupt and say that, look, this is not an accurate decision. And Khalifa Umar would say, well, listen to what Abul Hassan or what Ali is saying. Similarly, when we read the letter of Imam Hussain, written to the people of Basra, I believe, in which he states that, yes, we are grieved at the fact that Imam Ali's right of Khilafah was taken away from him as the first Khalifa. However, they tried to do many good things and they tried to rectify many wrongs, meaning Khalifa Abu Bakr and Khalifa Umar. We pray for them and we seek forgiveness for them as we seek forgiveness for ourselves. Similarly, we find that Imam Sadiq is the grandson from his father's side, from Imam Ali, and from his mother's side, from Khalifa Abu Bakr. So we can see, no, there is cooperation, there is cordiality. At the same time, there were disagreements as well. And I think we need to read history from a human perspective, that people can have differences, and yet they can be working with each other, and they can also have good feelings with each other. Now, if the door incident did happen, then I do not think that Imam Ali's attitude towards Khalifa Abu Bakr and Khalifa Umar would have been the way he has portrayed, or the way it has been portrayed, of cordiality and cooperation. So yes, there were differences, there were grievances, like it is with any human situation. At the end of it, there was reconciliation, and they cordially worked together for the betterment of the Ummah and for the glory of Islam.
Okay, thank you so much. And I really wanted to discuss that. You might not agree with the history and different interpretations of that, but I wanted to give you both the scholars the opportunity to do that. So let's open the lines now, 01924231083. Quite a lot of comments coming through as well on social media. Okay, we've got 3 callers. Let's see if we can take them. Let's take the first. If you keep your comments brief, your questions brief, we'll get through them. If I interrupt you, it's not because I'm being disrespectful. It's just I've got lots and lots of calls waiting. I want to get through as many as possible. Let's go to line 1. Assalamu alaikum. Who's there?
Hello. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, what's your name and where are you calling from, brother?
Yeah, it's Mr. Khan, and I'm calling from London.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us. What's your question, please?
No, can I, my main question is that I don't really understand why people are objecting. I mean, I'm certainly myself objecting to people to go and see the film. I, in the end, wasn't going to watch the film, and I went and watched it because of the amount of commotion and that was caused by people and for saying not to go and watch it. And to be honest with you, I mean, there's things that I didn't know that are in the film. I know there's, obviously post watching it, I did some research, and around some of it. Some of the stuff that's in the films are in our books as well, and in the Sahihs. And so from my perspective, I think we are doing a disservice to our and this is my question to more for the Shaykh, is that stopping people from watching the film is actually making them watch it more.
Yeah. We discussed that earlier.
Myself.
Okay. So
you understand my question?
We do. Thank you so much for your question. Sorry, I'm cutting you off because we've got lots and lots of calls today, and I want to get through them as many as possible. Okay, thank you so much, brother. Let's go to line 2. Who's there? Assalamu alaikum.
Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. What's your name, brother? Where are you calling from?
It's Hussain Shafiq. I'm calling from the Midlands, and mashallah.
Thank you so much. Welcome.
I love the fact you got both the Sheikhs together on your program, and
the honour is all ours, and we're blessed to have both of them.
Alhamdulillah. Sheikhs, I want to ask both of you this question, and I'm asking you as a student of knowledge, and I respect both of you as alim ad-din, as scholars. Sheikh, the Quran clearly says to us that don't be of those who have divided their religion and become sects, and every faction rejoicing in what it has. It's from the Quran. You both must know this, sort of 30, verse 31, 32. So with that in mind, I just wanted both sheikhs to know, your interpretation of that verse and how you can both maybe say something that gives us brothers and sisters watching some hope with regards to that, inshallah.
Thank you so much, brother. Bless you. Let's go to one more call and then we'll go back to Honourable Sheikhs. Okay, well, we'll come back to the calls as well in a second. Lots of comments around social media. Brother Sheikh Mohammed Umar, do you want to pick up that first question around the sense of, I think you've covered it already in terms of the American response where it flopped, and here, because of the uproar, lots of non-Muslims are going to watch the film, or were supposed to be watching the film before it was pulled by cinemas. And that second question there from the brother from the Midlands, can you pick up that point about the ayah of the Quran? Don't divide yourself. And can you give hope to young Muslims watching this around the world?
So, I mean, the first question, obviously, we've answered it about what took place and the response from the Muslim community. You know, obviously, I would really love if the Muslims were extremely mature and we could have done things in different ways. But, you know, the sensitivities, the way we are in the UK is extremely different. However, the brother mentioned a point that he then went and did some research and he found these narrations in the Sunni books. Let me make it very clear. Again, I would humbly request everyone to go to my paper. It's a detailed paper I've written on this specific issue on the door of Sayyidah Fatima. Did Umar bin al-Khattab attack a door? Now, the most authoritative Sunni reference that's given is the Musannaf of Ibn Abi Shaybah. Ibn Abi Shaybah, rahimallahu ta'ala, is one of the great imams and the teacher of Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Dawud, and Tirmidhi. He's called the Imam of the Muhaddithun. He's a very eminent scholar. He collected hadith, which is called his collection, apart from the 6 Kutub al-Sitta. In there is a narration that says, that describes a threat that was made, that people use as a premises that Umar did threaten Fatima, salamullah alayha. However, the issue is, the narrator who is narrating this incident was physically not born, nor was he physically present when this incident took place. So the question we ask is, who witnessed this? Where is the chain of transmission that confirms that such an event happened? We are in Sunni Islam, we are extremely rigorous when it comes to narrations. So, and when we come to verifying historical accounts, the way we have jarh wa ta'deel, which is to do with science of hadith, we apply the same principles in historical narrations. So we will look at the narration, and I'm telling you, without a doubt, I'm saying this live on TV, I wouldn't say vast majority, all the narrations that mention this incident are not narrated from reliable sources. From Al-Baladuri, a famous historian, he mentions this incident. Shafiq, the person who narrates the incident, between him and Abu Bakr, the Khalif, the Caliphate, there's a 60-year, 50-year difference. He wasn't even born. Another one's 150 years. Another one's 200 years. So these narrations are the discrepancies are there. And on the other hand, you have authentic narrations, rigorous authentic narrations speaking about the fadail of Abu Bakr and Umar and Shaykhain. So if you want to judge and you want to condemn Umar, and I'm saying this live on TV, I'm not afraid to say this, and I'll conclude with this, that if this incident did take place, I would be the first person to curse Umar bin al-Khattab. If he really did that to the daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I would be the first person to come out. However, all the narrations show they're extremely weak. There's mudallis, there's tadlis. I'm not going to explain these terms. They can read the paper, and it has no origin at all. It has no premises. And finally, yes, unfortunately, Islam was one Islam. After the passing of the Prophet, when it came to the Abbasid period, theological groups occur and happen. And hope, what would I say for hope? One sentence is what we are doing now, sitting together, different Muslims, and talking about something of commonality. I think that's a sign of hope.
Okay. I won't do the disrespect of you, Sheikh Arif, and give you 30 seconds. I want to give you more than that. So we'll take a break and we'll come back to your sense that lots of you out there want hope from our scholars, that they will do things to bring people together. and we'll hear from our scholars. We're going to take our final break. Where's the time gone? We'll come back and hopefully bring some conclusion about how we can bring communities together. Join us shortly. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum, welcome back. As I was saying just before the break, I don't know where this time is gone. We've got probably about 12 minutes left. So what I want to do is really focus on, not the audience, I love you guys, but I want to focus on the scholars. One of the things that we here at British Muslim TV want to do, because alhamdulillah, we're a non-sectarian channel, and lots of you are from different communities. You engage us, you love us, you support us. So we want to come back to this again and again, because I think dialogue, I suppose, Shaykh Arif, the thing I'm getting from this, the brother from the Midlands was talking about hope. I think the Centre for Inter-Muslim Studies is that hope. Al-Mahdi Institute, you, Shaykh Muhammad Umar, the work that you do is hope. And hope that we continue to talk one another. How important is that dialogue? Not agreeing on everything, but doing so with tolerance and respect.
Can I just come back on the last discussion and then continue through that?
Sure, please.
You know, we have to have integrity. Shia and Sunni need, and this is what we do at the Center of Intra-Muslim Studies. We come, ask each other searching questions about each other's history and theology. Now, that does not only provide an opportunity to critique each other, but it provides an opportunity to introspect and engage in self-critique. So both the Shias and Sunnis arrive at a clear understanding of what they themselves believe in and what they are all about. Now, historically, there have been differences. We have to admit there has to be integrity, scholarly integrity. But have we understood them accurately? That is the question. There have been disputes, no doubt. But have there been disputes that have been manageable by them within their human context and that we have taken out of proportion? I think this is what we find when we get the Shias and the Sunnis to interact with each other. Now, we've covered the issue of the door of Lady Fatima, Fadak, the Battle of Jamal, so on and so forth. I propose that the next stage should be not Shias and Sunnis talking with each other about their beliefs and their differences and trying to sort out, but Shias and Sunni coming together in one endeavor, trying to discover the truth of their history, of their theology, and then moving forward, saying, okay, this is what we can verify, this is what we can't verify, and we move on. Muhammad and Ali Muhammad and the Sahaba of Muhammad, Ridwanullah alayhim ajmain, and the wives of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and salamullah alayhim ajmain, they all had differences. They put their differences to one side and they moved on. And that's how human life is. So that is what I propose. Now, that brother made a wonderful comment. Everybody hold on to the rope of God. Do not be divided. I personally have come to a stage in my life where I feel we should be Muslims. Pray together, fast together, intermarry, do not curse, because the Imams have never, to the best of my belief and my research, the Imams have never taught any of their followers to curse the Khulafa. In fact, the grand Shia alim, Sayyid Ali Hussain Sistani, he discredits those ahadith that say that curse and swear at the opponent. No. Shia and Sunni should not be two readings of Islam. They should be Muslims first. And then they say, well, we have these nuances in the way in which we practice our Islam. But that also does not stop us practicing with each other. And according to my view, you can practice the way the other person is practicing as well. It makes no difference to your Islam, because Islam is from the heart and the Tawheed of Allah and Risalah of Muhammad Rasulullah and respect for the rest of them. So I do say, look, at this point in time, it's the 21st century, Shia and Sunni need to be very honest and understand that both of them have moved away either slightly or greatly from Islam, and they both need to come back to Islam. And the difference that exists between Shia and Sunni exists within Shias themselves, between Shia and Shia, and exists within Sunnis themselves, between Sunni and Sunni. So there is this air of intolerance of differences. We need to be mature, and we need to get rid of this intolerance, come together and rectify what has happened wrong historically with a collective effort. Sorry, these are the comments I wanted to make.
Yeah, that's really, really powerful. As we come to the end of the programme, as I said, we're here at British Muslim TV. We'll continue this dialogue and continue giving a platform to both of you and others to come and join us on this dialogue. I suppose, let me ask you, Sheikh Mohammed Umar, what do you expect from the Shia community during these difficult times?
I mean, from the leadership, from the most authoritative, seats in Shia of the Shia world, they have, to give them credit, have condemned sectarianism. They have condemned the swearing of the companions. But I think what needs to happen is, from both sides, we have to be a bit more mature and have some integrity when we sit on the minbar. We have to realize that the pulpit that we sit on there's a great responsibility on our shoulders, and we should not use that as an avenue of preaching hatred and intolerance towards any Muslim. I think the future really is what we are seeing, has the brother highlighted that he did his own research. If we do not, as scholars and as academics and as leaders, come together and discuss these narratives historically and look at how to look at them in a modern context, unfortunately, we will alienate a whole generation of young people that will do their own research, and we're seeing, the problems that we are facing in our communities. So, I mean, what I would humbly pray, one of the positive things that could have emerged from this unfortunate incident is that scholars and people from both sides can come and sit with each other. We have to get rid of the Shia phobia from our sides. We have to really not think of Shias as, and this is something I myself had. It's only when you sit with their scholars, it's only when you sit with them and interact with them, a lot of the misconceptions that you have isn't really Shia Islam. It's just hearsay or just gossip.
Yeah.
So
no, sorry, I'm just conscious of our time as well. We've got 5 minutes left, so let's see if we can get through some of these questions. Sheikh Arif, the same question to you, but you flip it. What do you expect from the Sunni Muslim scholars during these times?
I would want Shia and Sunni scholars to actually come together, not so much with each other to discuss what they are all about, but to come together and collectively reflect on those issues that are sensitive and divisive. You see, I echo the sentiments of one or two speakers who have said that it is no good condemning the movie when actually we believe in these things. Because if we believe in these things, then what's wrong with a movie being made about what we believe and reflecting it? Why should we be afraid and, hide in? And I agree, because that's hypocrisy. If you believe in something, then stand by it. The fact is that what you're believing in is inaccurate. Now, I want to say that to both my dear learned Shia and Sunni scholars. Majority of what we as Muslims, in terms of Shia and Sunni, believe of our divisive issues that tear us apart are inaccurate. They need to be subjected to thorough scrutiny. Now, I know it's a difficult task for a Sunni to critique himself, for a Shia to critique himself. It's not easy that we've grown up with a narrative and then to challenge it and then to find that actually it's faulty and it's wrong. But it is something that I feel is necessary, and without it, I really don't think real unity can take place, because every so often you will find somebody coming up exploiting those points of weaknesses within Shia Sunni theology and history and creating and fueling tensions for their own ends. Now, we've seen this, how political leaders have taken advantage of these weaknesses, and it'll continue happening until the scholars come together and sort it out.
Okay, we've got 3 minutes. I'll give you 1 minute each, sir. Shaykh Umar, what's your final message to our viewers?
I would just say, Jazakallah khair for the invitation, Jazakallah khair to British Muslim TV. And my message to all people, or to the people that are watching this program, is that we live in a very sensitive world, and it's only when we come together and we have a dialogue, when we research and we speak to each other, can we identify and realize and appreciate the differences and the diversity that we have. And don't allow this minority and other minorities, apart from Yasser Habib, to divide us. We have a rich tradition of pluralistic understanding, and that is what we should be advocating. And please go to the SIMS website, Center for Intra-Muslim Studies, and you will see the work that we are doing there.
Thank you so much. Shaykh Arif, final minute to you as well, sir.
So if I'm speaking to the brothers and sisters, the grassroots, then I will say, look, to the Shias, that Sunnis are not bad people. They are the most beautiful souls and hearts. Do not distinguish them from Shia. A lot of them don't even know, about Sunni Shia differences. I'll say to my Sunni beloved brothers and sisters, Shias don't know majority of the things that we accuse them of. They are genuine, loving, God-loving human beings. See each other as brothers and sisters and say, well, if my brother is slightly mistaken according to me, then my job, for the sake of Allah, is to show greater love and a good example, and both of us can move together to seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I will just say one thing to both the grassroots: when the public preachers preach sectarianism and divisive issues and deride each other, hold them accountable and question them for their sources and see the historicity of it.
Well, thank you so much to you, Sheikh Mohammed Umar, the chairman of the Ramadan Foundation, joining us live from Manchester, and Sheikh Arif Abdul Hussain, founder of the Mahdi Institute, joining us live from Birmingham. Well, my final comment is this. The dialogue we've seen tonight here has been extraordinary. It's been positive, and it's something which we will continue to do. This film was very disrespectful, and you've heard that tonight. So we'll continue the dialogue. Thank you so much for joining us. From me and the whole team here at British Muslim TV, have a great evening, have a great week, and I'll see you same time next week. Assalamu alaikum.